Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I hope everyone's having a lovely day. My name is East Brave, and welcome back to your most trusted source in podcast review. On this journey, we explore millions of widely available podcasts and all streaming services and report back to give you our honest take and review. I also extend my gratitude by thanking everyone for your continuous support, and you can continue to do that by dropping us a like and subscribing to our channel. But more importantly, watch and share our videos to grow our community and channel. The last thing is I would like to mention is that if there is a podcast you are currently listening to that isn't on my radar, reach out, put me on, and I'll be sure to put out a future episode reviewing that podcast. Before we begin, I would like to preface with a quick disclaimer. I am not a professional or a qualified journalist performing at the highest level. However, I am an independent journalist and a podcast lover. Therefore, the information to deliver this episode was gathered from public sources and whatever I could find online. Of course, we do our best to filter out any misinformation. As such, we only source information from trusted sources or website. If you find anything that was out of place or miscommunicated, feel free to drop it in the comments. I would also like to mention that there will be conversations about the Christian faith, heavy subjects on ethics and morals, and topics of religion. I'm not here to change anyone's mind or question anyone's belief system surrounding the topic of, religion. Um, it's 2024. Be who you need to be, believe what you want to believe. As always, find happiness through you and for you. And with that, let's get into today's episode. All right, so for today's episode, we will review a popular podcast called Girls Gone Bible. Oh! I know it's been 3 months and y'all been waiting. Y'all been waiting. And you know, it's a very popular podcast. It's called Girls Gone Bible. Let me introduce you to our girls. The two hosts of this podcast are Angela Lilly and Ariel Ritzma. Herein, we will refer to Angela as Ange or Ariel as Ari. Those are the names they go by. However, I'm going to be making a slight change here. For Ange, we shall call her Angie, just to keep the rhythm alike and things simple. So Angie and Ari. It has a better ring to it, don't it? I would also like to apologize if I butchered both of your last names. I'm not good with last names. It's my kryptonite. Again, I do apologize. These two girls took the internet by storm with their captivating glamour, wholesome personality, and unwavering friendship. Angie currently has 358K followers on Instagram. Ari has about 348K followers on Instagram. And their Girls Gone Bible Instagram account has accumulated 891K followers. Now, I would like to share my observation. People aren't following these girls because of their captivating beauty. As one comment on Reddit reads, I look at their Instagram the other day and all the clip titles were about the Holy Spirit and can't believe people genuinely listen to this pod. I'd be bored out of my mind. I am going to be the first to tell you that the vast majority of their content on Instagram is about the love of God and their Savior, Lord Jesus Christ. If you are not a Christian, I can't see anyone sticking around. So to see that they have almost accumulated 900K followers on Instagram brings me great joy. It's obvious to me that these girls are carrying out God's work, and sooner or later, many people will come to know Jesus if they choose to stick around long enough. Now, let's dive into their careers, credentials, and accolades. Let's start with Angie. She was born on February the 4th, 1996, in Albania, to parents Edmund and Christina. She has two older brothers and were all raised in Clearwater, Florida. Angie is an actress known for American History Stories in 2021, The Space Between 2021, and The Spin the Bottle. She is obviously a social media influencer sensation. She is more commonly known for co hosting a popular podcast called Girls Gone Bible, which is the one we will be reviewing today. Angie began taking theaters and acting classes at a very young age. She later made her acting debut in the film Maria, My Love in 2011. There is no secret that if you want to make it big in the entertainment business, Los Angeles is the place where dreams, hard work, and a little bit of luck can become your reality. So in 2014, Angie decided to move to Los Angeles to attend the American Academy of Dramatic Arts to study acting and to pursue her dream as an actor. She graduated in 2016 with her bachelor's of arts in acting and continued to pursue her career in the field. Here are some FYI about Angie. She enjoys traveling, photography, gaming, swimming, and dancing. She is very spiritual and enjoys talking about her Christian faith. Let's move on to Ari. She is a popular model and movie actress born on November the 19th, 1989. She was raised in poverty in Massachusetts. She later settled in Los Angeles, California. She is widely recognized for her appearance in the American sitcom How I Met Your Mother. She is also known for featuring in the comedy Rock of Ages in 2012. Growing up, Ari had a passion for acting. In her late teens, she won the Miss Hawaiian Tropic pageant crown. Several years later, she made her screen acting debut in the video production Spider Mountain, No Way Down. She has amassed over 15 acting credits throughout her ongoing career. Now, you all know how I feel. I'm not here to make friends. I'm simply here to tell the truth. There are some controversies surrounding these girls, so let's quickly get into that. Accordingly to an article posted by the New York Post on August the 5th, 2023, titled Sexy Girls Gone Bible Stars Slam for Christian Podcasts Using the Lords for Personal Gain. It is a short read, but the premise is that one recent episode revolved around the topic of modesty, avoiding impropriety, which is defined as the following: a failure to observe standards or show due honesty or modesty, improper language, behavior, or character. In this specific episode, Angie confesses that in the past, she has worn some questionable things, also posted some questionable things on her Instagram, and expressed that at a time in her life where she thought that being sexy and being provocative was empowering. Ari chimes in by letting us know that they are new Christians and followers of the faith, and that they are learning every day to become better Christians. So she expressed that the platform that they have is important to them. And being followers of Christ, it was imperative to glorify God in a meaningful way and to send the right message. Now, I have mentioned in my previous episode that when God gives you the power to influence, it's important to not send the wrong message or lead people astray. So here's the controversy. Accordingly to the article, the episode came after the pair were blasted for photos posted to their respective Instagram account where they show off their godly given beauty. Someone commented, "It is shameful for you to represent Jesus Christ in this manner." One Christian critic raged beneath a recent photo of Angie in a crop top. "Really? Look at these lust provoking photos. It is about you or you using my Lord for your personal gain." Another critic commented, "Stop showing off your body. That's supposed to be for your husband." The article continues with, "However, the pair have quickly found a faithful following, with many of the believers sending messages of support. One beloved fan and supporter wrote, 'I absolutely adore you both. I've seen so much hate and negativity, specifically from believers. Jesus called you both for such a time as this. Our generation needs you too. Beautiful, strong, young, ambitious, and relatable people with enough courage to bring hope and light to the lost.'" Now, as a Christian myself, I want to go on the record with this. I'm a firm believer that these girls are carrying out God's work, and I do believe that they are doing great work. Throughout the Bible, we see God using imperfect people for the sake of his mission to bring hope to the world. God uses ordinary people to do extraordinary things. It has never been about the rich and powerful that have influence. God has always relied on the broken. Even Jesus Christ was raised in poverty and became a working man before pursuing his work in ministry. Now, I can agree that these girls aren't traditional Christians. I also know that once you are labeled as troublesome, it becomes extremely difficult to erase that stigma from our makeup, which leads me to believe that they are being blasted and judged by very traditional Christians. Some people are, sticklers for tradition, and I get that too. But here's my hot take on this matter. We don't live in traditional times. Now, let me ask you a serious question. Do you think God is smart enough to know this? It's a rhetorical question, but it's warranted. We have all these young girls getting into sex work by doing OnlyFans content. Now, not only that, but they are appearing on popular podcasts, boasting how much they make and how cool it is. And this could be extremely alluring to younger, impressionable girls who could be watching. And as we know, learned behaviors are looked at under a microscope through social media. So we mustn't send the wrong message to our youth. Let's exhibit this more carefully. One can argue we are encouraged to have bad ethics, and that becomes our everyday norm. I would like you to examine this video here. Let's have a look.
The question that I asked was, do you think God wants you making porn? And your answer was,
the first time I said yes,
yeah.
but
And then
I wanted to just change my I think that there's nothing wrong with what I do, and
the
Yeah.
exchange we had, my follow-up question was, if God wants you to be a porn star, what do you think Satan wants?
Satan wants you to sway you from believing in God's purpose.
Okay, but your response was Satan would want you to not do porn, and God would want you to do porn.
Yeah, my response was that. But I understand where you're saying people can be lusting over porn and sex work content.
You obviously don't really
that's their choice. But what I'm doing, I'm not harming anybody.
The religion that you say that you believe in has 10 commandments, the sixth of which is to not commit adultery. And the God that you profess to believe in says that if you look on a woman with lust, that is the same as adultery. And the religion that you profess to believe in has a sexual ethic that accompanies it.
Sinning from lusting and watching, I get all that, but that's their choice at the end of the day, not mine. And yeah, I don't think God's.
Oh, you're saying it's only a sin to look at to produce the.
I'm not making on my OnlyFans, so.
I mean, you kind of are, aren't you? Like,
Being naked is considered a sin.
it's considered porn. Yeah.
Okay, well, I worship a God that walks on earth with grace and dignity, and I feel nothing wrong with what I'm doing right now.
Do you really not? So then how do you answer the sixth commandment?
How did this happen? How on earth did we get here? Can somebody tell me how did we exactly arrive here? Now, I'm not sure how much water this holds, or if it holds any water at all, but make this make sense. A perfect example of the blind leading the blind. I want to be real clear here. I'm not here to slander nor pass judgment because I'm not perfect. I also come with a dark and murky past before finding Christ. However, I'm certainly not using God's name as a way of scapegoating. We are in a time where people often open their mouths without thinking and want people to feel sorry for putting their own feet in their own damn mouth. Call me traditional or what you will, but I'm a stickler as well for accountability. Also, I had found that pointing at others is a way of praising yourself, and I'm not here for that. The point is this: Angie and Ari are out here doing God's work for the Lord. From what I can gather, this gives me an inkling that these so called traditional Christians are so out of touch with reality. It is clear to me that these are a cast of character united for a witch hunt. To diminish these girls' character, some people just have ice cold water in their veins, and that's just who they are. There is a saying that if you are looking for the good in others, surely you'll find it. In the same breath, if you are looking for things and are looking to tear people down and to hate them, you'll find reasons for that too. But that's not what the world needs right now. We live in very different times where everything hinges on the power imbalance between good and evil. How I see it, God has to get creative. Perhaps God is the one using their beauty to achieve God's bottom line and not the other way around. Regardless of what you think about Angie and Ari, one thing is for sure, two things is for certain. We can love them or hate them, but God won't allow us to ignore them. Now, let's get into the podcast. This podcast is about two friends searching for the American dream and making it big in Hollywood. Angie and Ari share their testimonies of how they found Christ and allow us to walk alongside their Christian journey. This is a Christian based podcast where there are strong topics about the Christian faith, biblical scriptures, mental health, navigating life as a Christian, relationships, and they bring everything back to Jesus. This is also a fairly new podcast. The first episode was aired on May the 10th, 2023. And let me be the first to tell you, for a podcast that only been around for a little over a year, it is doing exceptionally well. May I add that Girls Gone Bible is ranked number one on Spotify in the top religion and spirituality podcast category. Let's take a quick second to give these girls their flowers for achieving their milestone and also for reaching their first anniversary. I wish you girls a lot of success. Keep moving in God's direction and block out those noises. Um, you know, you need to be reminded that their judgment of you isn't a reflection of you or who you are. It is actually a reflection of their insecurities, their character, and their relationship with God or the lack thereof. Um, there is an old saying that stood the test of time because it's so profounding. Before you throw stones, be sure to check your own house first. All right, let's move on. There are currently 68 episodes, and the average time for each episode is about an hour long. However, some episodes fall short by a few minutes, and the majority of their episodes run a bit longer than an hour. Now, Girls Gone Bible is going on a live tour to 14 states, starting from September the 13th right through December 21st, 2024. You can go directly to their website, girlsgonebible.com, and check out their itinerary for those upcoming events. Since we are on the topic of their website, we can also find merch there. This is another great way to support your favorite content creator is by buying their merch. But I do have some bad news. When they did have them a few months ago, um, they were sold out like hotcakes. Um, Actively right now, there is no merch available, but just keep an eye out for the next drop. I love this podcast, and this is for all you female haters out there. No, I don't watch their videos on YouTube at all, actually. I really don't have time for that. I strictly listen to their audio podcasts on Spotify, just like all the other podcasts that I listen to. So, from a real critic like myself, I can tell you that there are a lot of strong discussions about the Christian faith, biblical scriptures, and testimonies from guest speakers, conversations with pastors, preachers, authors, and so much more. This community welcomes everyone. Angie and Ari, they aren't going to say this, so I'm going to say it for them. If you are here for the wrong reasons, or simply you are not ready to be here, this isn't going to be an ideal community for you because this podcast isn't for everyone. And if you are so fixated on the way these girls look, then maybe maybe you are the one who needs to start looking inwards, and perhaps that is where your workshop begins. All right, let's get into the good, the bad, and the interesting. And let's just start with all that good jazz. The first obvious thing I like about this podcast is that Angie and Ari are very easy to listen to. Not only are they bubbly, but they somehow manage to avoid being overly annoying. I feel like their content is extremely friendly and very digestible. I have mentioned in countless previous episodes that it was important to me who the narrator was, how soothing their voice, their tone, their cadence. For me, a good narrator can either make or break a podcast. If I don't like the way you sound, if you have an annoying laugh, if I can't connect with the message you are trying to convey that creates thought provoking or revealing moments that can elevate me to the next level, I'm out of here. The second thing I like about this podcast is that it allows me to strengthen my biblical studies. They do biblical readings. I feel like this setting is better for me to some degree. My previous pastor recently retired, and he was a great pastor, but I feel like his sermons don't speak to me as well because his style of pastoring is very traditional, and because I'm a younger demographic, some of his analogies and the way he's delivering it aren't relatable to me. And I'm not trying to sound rude or crude, but it does come off as boring at times, and I struggle to sit through and follow along during the sermons. Now, I do have a new pastor. His name is Pastor Adam, and I love the work that he is currently doing for our church, and I'll look forward to seeing more of him. Every Sunday, I find myself at the edge of my seat, anticipating what he's going to say next. He is funny and relatable, uses great analogies, and makes scriptures learning fun. And that is the same way I feel about Angie and Ari. It's obvious that my pastor has the credentials and he is well versed in biblical studies and ministry work that serves greater value to me as a Christian follower. I'm going to agree that Angie and Ari are new to the Christian faith and they are simply sharing their journey. I feel like this is a great podcast for anyone who may have taken an interest looking to dip their toes in the water. Then this is a great starting point in search for truth through the Christian faith. Another thing I like about this podcast is their display of humility, honesty, and obedience. They are vulnerable and truthful about their sobriety, their eating disorder, their flaws, strong topics about their mental health, their testimonies, and how they used to live a life of sin before finding Christ. Now, I'm a firm believer and a strong advocate of living in your truth because living in dishonesty only leads to pain and suffering. And it's in my experience that living in your truth will only set you free. And it is the only way that will be, that you'll be set free. So I want to commend these girls for being courageous and vulnerable while being carefully watched under a microscope. I do feel like these girls will make a cultural impact, especially at a time of toxic feminism and the rise of sex work through OnlyFans. These girls are so wholesome and they are so genuine. They truly are the light and beacon of spiritual enlightenment. So I look very forward to seeing more of their work. Another thing I like about this podcast is how they use biblical scripture as a guideline to help us navigate the terrains of everyday problems and struggles. I feel like this is a great roadmap for those who have currently lost their footing and are stagnant in the waiting period of life. I also like how they use biblical scriptures to tackle hard hitting topics. This is a spiritually moving and mind shifting podcast. Every hard hitting topic has strong ties to well grounded in biblical scriptures and biblical truth. They also give great sound biblical advices and relationships. Another thing I like about this podcast is that I love hearing the riveting testimonies throughout this podcast. We all have our own Christian story about our journey, our faith, and how we came to know Jesus and how we changed our lives. And for someone like myself who was an atheist, I've had experienced something so unearthly that every time when I hear another person's testimonies, I can't help but to be filled with absolute joy to the point that sometimes it would actually bring me to tears. It makes me feel like I'm not the only one because every time I tell a non believer my testimony, they always give me the "you're crazy" look. Another thing I like about this podcast are the guests that appears on the show. The first guest episode they did with Erwin McManus was absolutely lit. I really did enjoy it. Erwin was dropping a lot of jewels and gems. They were so thought provoking and relatable, so much so that I had to stop the episode to rewind a few times so that I can hear it again or take notes. Another episode they did was with ex mafia Michael Franchise. That was a great episode as well. I mean, this podcast is jam packed with great testimonies. Now, for the record, my favorite episode of Girls Gone Bible is about body image. This episode was released on June the 6th, 2024, and let me tell you why. Angela shares how fasting and prayer have helped played a significant role in her healing journey from disordered eating and negative body image. It was a very emotional episode, and being a male audience who knows very little about eating disorder and negative body self image, but this topic isn't anything new. I always knew about this problem, and it is very common amongst females. I'm a father of two girls. My youngest was bullied and they called her fat. My daughter isn't fat at all, actually. Um, Kids were being kids, but my youngest had a hard time dealing with this. So much so that she would ask my oldest daughter to teach her how to be skinny, which was heartbreaking when my oldest had told me this. She would also purposely not eat, and if she did, she would eat very little. The doctor told us it was common for kids to eat less around her age, but it was obvious that there were other forces contributing to that. Now, the good news here is that we were able to work through this with her. She is now eating, has regained her confidence, and is currently flourishing. When this episode was aired, not only did it resonate with me, but there was so many teaching moments because I lack understanding and empathy on this emotional intelligence spectrum to this matter. Hearing Angie's story gave me a window into what my daughter uh, may have gone through. Because of this episode, it actually helped me become more aware of her emotions. It was like an encrypted message that I completely missed. And this episode helped me crack that code. This is one of the great things about this podcast. For one, you never know who is listening and the tremendous value it may bring forth to someone's life. And second is that it taught me that two people can be in the same space at the same time, but can have very different experiences. Now, the last thing I like about this podcast is that they end each episode with a prayer. Prayers are important. They give us hope, they give us healing. More importantly, they give us salvation and they will help us draw closer to God. Now, let's get into the bad and interesting. The only thing that I dislike about the podcast is that at times I can't tell the difference between Angie and Ari. I strictly listen to the podcast version on Spotify, so there were moments when their tone of their voice, their cadence, and expression are so identical that you really can't tell them apart, and oftentimes I get lost in that. Bear in mind, these girls have been friends for a long, long time. So, and yeah, and they spend a lot of time together. So this was the only thing that irks me. Not a big deal. Um, and it's really not their fault at all. But hey, I had to say it because I'm a trusted source. Overall, I think this is a great podcast for Christian audiences or people who want to dip their toes into the Christian faith. Let's close today's episode. Now, I know this episode took a while to come out. During this project, a lot was happening in our world, so much so that I had this overwhelming, burning desire to send you off with a well crafted message. Here it is. Let me reveal something shocking during my research for this episode, and I am extremely baffled and concerned by the totality of this ongoing issue. So I implore you, to consider the following. Accordingly, a 2001 survey claimed that 77.1% of Canadians claim to have a Christian faith. This was 23 years ago. A decade later, a survey claimed that 67.3% of Canadians claim to have a Christian faith. That is 9.8% drop from the previous decade, so almost 10% there. Here is the nail in the coffin. In the following decade, 53.3% of Canadians claim to have a Christian faith. That is a 14% drop from the previous decade. I don't know how America is like. I don't know what the statistics of wherever your geographic location is, but I'm only speaking for Canadians. What does this all mean? Retrospectively, these statistics reveal to us a moral reckoning of epic proportion of what we are experiencing as a society. I hate to say it. I really, really hate to say it. But the world is in a deep, sunken place. And we live in very troubling times where there is nothing short of seabeds of oppositions working hand in hand with the devil. The devil has demons and disciples as much as God has angels and apostles. So let me ask you, which side did you find yourself on this morning? There is this warfare between good and evil brewing, and it is a dangerous cocktail waiting to go up in flames. More now than ever, it is important for us to stay vigilant. Donald Trump, they tried to kill a sitting president. How did we get here? There are also unspeakable atrocities and deplorable acts of violence and genocide conflicted with innocent casualties of war. This is the very true form and nature of moral depravity and a primal example of humans overstepping. There is a quote by Alex Susanism, and it goes something like this. The world has a certain tolerance level for evil. There will always be evil in this world, but when that level is surpassed, all morality cracks and human beings become capable of anything. We are in a state of time, neither the heaven nor the earth knows what the fuck is going on. Excuse my French. I hate to say this, but that's just where we are. But what I really want to do is address the elephant in the room. I don't like the premise that whenever we want to have a rational conversation, people just want to be ignorant and irrational, which is really a bad omen if you ask me. We live in a time where we are praised and rewarded for being unethical. It's becoming a mantra in the very fabric of our society. And I think this is just sick and vile that anyone think that this behavior is acceptable. To give you more context to where we are headed, consider the following statistics provided by enterprise.com. Of course, this information was condensed for time. However, if you want to have a full read, again, go directly to enterprise.com. As of 2023, there are 33.38% of female and 66.62 male users of OnlyFans.com. As of January 2023, the OnlyFans statistics by demographic states that the highest number of users observed is between the age group of 25 to 34 years of age, resulting in 25.72%. There are 21.17% of OnlyFans users between the age group of 18 to 25 years old, and 3% and 12.87% belongs respectively between the age group of 35 to 44 years of age and between 45 to 54 years of age. 14% of users are aged between 55 to 64 years old, and finally, about 11.8% of OnlyFans users contributing from the age group of 65 years and older. I think everyone can agree and can acknowledge that OnlyFans is nothing else but a safer and more viable way to do porn and prostitution. It is essentially sex work, for the lack of better words, but the fact remains. I'm not here to knock on anyone's hustle because growing up is a series of uncomfortable collision. We are currently living in hyperinflation times, so I understand that the tides are shifting. So I get it. You got to get it how you can. I'm also going to be respectful towards people with a case by case situation because it is important to not paint everyone with the same brush. I can empathize and sympathize with those who don't have the means to fend for themselves and their families, which strips them to their fringes. I'm also not a huge fan of someone popping champagne or parading over someone's downfall. I'm really not. I want everyone to win, and I'm here for it. But be that as it may, just because I don't agree with your choices and decisions does not necessarily mean that we can't sit at the same table. It's possible for two things to be true at the same time. You know, with the direction that we are as a society find ourselves in, it's important to not just have compassion for one another, but it's important that all views need to be heard. We don't necessarily have to agree with someone, but that doesn't mean that we can't have a conversation. It's tough to be a female right now at this present moment. They are constantly being bombarded by social media with vanity and the message it brings, which leads to a lure of young and impressionable females thinking that sex is the only way to buy us into a good life. That in itself is a travesty. And it also is a dangerous narrative. Yet, it is a very common practice in the marketing and advertising industry. The phrase sex sells. Sex sells is a phrase alluding to the use of sex in advertising in order to help sell a particular product or service through sex appeal. I think we are only scratching the surface here. Allow me to expand. What I'm about to say may rub a lot of people the wrong way, but I think here is the paradox that sits at the very core of our society. I think I'm wrong for saying this, but I also think I'm right. And oftentimes people turn to me to tell the truth. So I'm going to say what everyone wants to say, but they're not saying it because they're scared of the smoke or they're scared to get canceled. I'm not. I'm just here to tell the uncomfortable truth, whether you like it or not. It's scary to think that these two separate statistics that were provided today have very revealing similarities that are striking to me. And with that, I'm going to be brutally honest because I don't have time to be disingenuous. I don't. I think the biggest problem our generation is facing is that there is a long standing debate about morals and ethics, and it's inconceivable that many people think that they are one and the same. Now, I can agree that they do come hand in hand, but I'm going to assure you there is a clear distinction between the two. Let me give you the framework. Morals are when a person knows not to cheat on their spouse or knows that they should not steal, all well knowing they still do it anyway. That's why a serial cheater continues to cheat because they have no shame. They can't acknowledge what they did was wrong. Ethics is when a person knows not to cheat on their spouse or knows that they should not steal, and they simply just don't do it. This is why some people who would do something bad to someone, every time when this person crossed path, they would quickly cross the street to avoid them due to the shame that they feel or felt. This shame and humility is a good indication that this person has good ethics. You know what you did wrong, and you feel extremely bad about it. Everyone can have a moral compass because the first talking point was self explanatory, and we all get that. But where we all fall short is we lack ethics to uphold those morals. So, not everyone gets that. In the same breath, ethics should be the non negotiable gold standard in how we should live and conduct ourselves in full service to each other and to our society. There's a difference of being receptive and being responsible. There's a spectrum here. People are receptive but are usually passive about it, whereas there are people who are receptive but are responsible people. So it's important to be the voice of our own reasoning. A deceived person, by the very nature of deception, has no possible way of knowing that they're being deceived. That is, unless someone shines a light onto the issue, revealing the truth to them and exposing the lies for what they truly are: lies and deception. We are at a time with a lot of moral and ethical deficit. It appears that people no longer have a reservation for these things anymore, and it's up to us to cultivate the condition of our hearts. I'm sure there's a plethora of other things in the mix, but I strongly feel that a lot could be lost here. At such a time as this, I feel that we need to draw closer to God. Moreover, we have these uncanny ideas of what is deemed right or wrong. We have poor talking points without objective viewpoints. I'm not going to put it all on that, but the Bible has a lot of merit in this. The Bible can connect with anything, even to a burnt out light bulb. And if nothing else, the Bible is a great starting point to make ethics the new norm again. The Bible is very fascinating because things like the Ten Commandments are so accurate. There's actually 613 commandments from the Old Testament law, but we're not going to get all into that. But 7 out of 10 commandments, you do not have to be a follower of Christ to follow these commandments. It actually has very little to do with God, but more to do with the foundation and fundamentals that one must possess in order to become a decent human being. It weighs entirely on the concept of moral judgments and good ethics. It is also accurate in the fact that it is God's words, and once anyone can accept that, they will be able to hear the truth in it. We must abandon this spiritual and mental nakedness where we are shameless and we have no values. This leads me back to Angie and Ari. These two girls are the two faces and personification of our current ongoing crisis. And it is imperative that they continue to carry out God's work. I know these girls are getting dragged, but the strong person has never been those who point at those who stumble. In boxing, they give you 10 seconds to get back up after getting knocked down. So I'm a firm believer this is how we all should live our lives. We all need growing pains, more so that some of you need to hear this. So I'm going to say it. Growth usually comes from hardships, and they are usually ugly experiences, but the blessings are always in the lessons. That's if you choose to step away from your delusion, you'll be able to change your landscape. But I guess that's the funny thing about delusion is that we don't know that we are. I'm also a firm believer that people can change and salvage their life. We are all trying to find that thing that best reflects our time here, that gives our life deep meaning and purpose. Be patient with yourself. Great things take time to be discovered. Be mindful of your struggles because they greatly give our lives meaning. Conversely, they create new meaning for us to live and to carry on with a greater degree. So, in closing, just as they say, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and ethics and morality are through the lens of one's experiences. We all may walk the same path, but each one of us will see different things on that very path. And with that, that wraps up today's episode. Keep your heart blessed in this world's mess. Go with God until next time. More peace to the world.